All right, welcome and thanks for joining our webinar today, where we're excited to discuss top 5 ways experts use instant narratives to drive business value. My name is Brian Zwallen. I'm the SVP of Customer Success at Arria, and I'll be your host for this event. So our agenda is going to kick off today with a little context around who we are as individual professionals and organizations. And we'll discuss our solution to empower your organization with actionable insights to facilitate faster decision-making. And we'll touch on our tech suite that shows the various ways you can deploy our solution that truly scales. And then we'll jump into a live action demo and a Tableau dashboard. And then finally, we'll close out with some time for Q&A. So first off, let me introduce my colleague, Douglas Kirk. Doug is our training and development specialist at Arria. He's working with us to develop the various success plan courses at Arria Academy. You may have seen him in our Getting Started videos, and so you may recognize his voice. Doug, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Brian, and welcome to everyone that's attending.
Great, so a little bit about Arria. We're the recognized global leader in natural language generation, or NLG. We specialize in extracting insights from complex data sources and then communicating the knowledge that's learned through natural language. Our research center is located in Aberdeen, Scotland, with our primary businesses offices in the United States and regional offices worldwide. Our chief scientists, Dr. Ehud Reiter and Dr. Yaju Sapata, are two of the leading figures internationally in the NLG space. They mentor a team of PhDs in artificial intelligence disciplines, such as NLG and data science. So Arria NLG is an artificial intelligence technology in that it replicates the human process of expertly analyzing and communicating insights about your data. Using our solution provides your organization with accurate, consistently excellent, non-biased commentary at machine speed and massive scale. In a recent Gartner report, they're stating that data storytelling helps decision makers engage with data and analytics by delivering insights in compelling forms. And 75% of stories will be automatically generated through technologies like NLG. Using Arria NLG, again, you deliver real, actionable insights without the need for interpretation. So you'll gain efficiencies through the automation of analysis and writing of reports, which frees up your valuable employees from doing those kinds of robotic tasks. You achieve consistently excellent, non-biased commentary with the ability to scale and then democratize the knowledge throughout the entire organization. And with our out-of-the-box capabilities, you'll see a quick return on your investment. Our customers and partners invent all kinds of ways to harness the power of NLG. This slide speaks from a few of our customers and the value they've realized using Arria NLG. So the BBC says in a one-click process, they were able to take raw data and automatically generate news stories at speed and scale. The Bank of New York Mellon significantly reduced the amount of time writing these reports and of course freeing their valuable employees to have more time interacting with customers. And Ernst & Young provides more accurate and consistently excellent reports for their customers. If you navigate to our website by typing arria.com/everywhere, you'll find another list of use cases from customers and partners. Just mouse over the tiles, their quotes will be available for your review. At Arria, we have a vision of NLG everywhere. In order for us to empower organizations to expand their use, we've developed several channels where NLG can be accessed. It's all supported by Arria NLG Studio that sits on top of the stack. So for instance, if you're using our custom extension in a BI dashboard, whether that's Tableau or Power BI, or TIBCO, Click, or MicroStrategy, your data flows from the dashboard through Studio, which then analyzes the data, and then it passes the commentary right back into the dashboard next to your other visuals. In a few moments, we're going to look at our Arria NLG apps. This gives you the ability to create narratives without code. So you simply select a few dimensions and measures, click a few configuration buttons, and then select what type of analysis you're interested in. We'll also look at Arria Answers that takes this a step further. So if you're looking to drill down even more than the provided narrative, you can simply type a question and you'll get an answer back in natural language. And Arria Connect allows your developers or partners to connect our solution with many other systems, including your own bespoke solution. An Arria for RPA, or robotic process automation, allows you to build an end-to-end solution. So you could potentially pull data together from disparate systems and then pass insights on that data to any presentation layer, including email notifications. And there are 1.1 billion Microsoft installs, which equals to a lot of Excel users. And Excel is not going away anytime soon. With Arria for Excel, you're able to augment complex analysis with commentary directly embedded in the worksheet. These add-ins for dashboards and Excel, they're available today for you to download and try. Just navigate to arria.com/technology-suite. As you can see up there in my URL. I'll put this up there again at the end of the presentation. And then it's all centered around Studio. As our COO likes to say, this is the heart and soul of Arria NLG. This is where the analysis is being done, and then where it's being decided on what should be talked about in that data. Now, if you're a studio creator, you actually build an NLG model that you can apply your business rules to teach the model to talk back to you about the data that you're interested in. Because there's no technology on the planet today that's going to be able to read your mind and know what you want to know from the information. So instead of just passing you all the information, which is too much information, it works within the framework that you set up. It's a very deterministic type of technology. We've made it very accessible. So basically, wherever that data source is located, and we don't care where that is, you connect through a RESTful API. The data will pass through securely through the RESTful API into Studio, and then Studio is going to analyze it, generate the text, flush the cache, and then it's going to pass that narrative right back out to any presentation layer of choice. So not just the BI dashboard, but again, wherever you want to present that information. All right, cool. So Doug, I'm done with my slides. How about we make you the presenter and we'll cut into your presentation.
Sounds good.
Let's see. All right, cool. You should have controls right now.
All right, passing the baton. And can you see my browser screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 5 use cases where recognized industry experts might use instant narratives to elevate their dashboards to drive business value. In each example, I will name the title of a recognized expert and validate their conclusions using a peer-reviewed expert source. And of course, we're going to take a look at Arria for Tableau. So the first strategy, let me set up my screen here. All right, the first strategy, where's my mouse, is not to aim for faster information, but aim for faster decision making. And this came from a source that should be recognized quite easily, MIT. So successful executives want more and faster information, and most companies are racing to provide it. What many of them overlook, though, is that the real aim should not be faster information, but faster decision making, and they are not the same thing. So decision makers want an analysis of data, pretty much like Brian was mentioning before, not 50 pages of data. They want the ability to make a quick decision. So recalling an example mentioned by Brian earlier, an executive mentioned that Arria NLG can deliver faster decision making for someone with his title, which was Global Head of Strategic Alliances. Someone in this role must evaluate opportunities to identify those with the highest potential. So let me switch over to my browser again. And here we go. We're looking at a dashboard that analyzes actual sales so we can see how someone in his role can maximize opportunities for sales growth. Want to point out where you can, of course, get this. So clicking over here on arria.com/bi-tableau. And here you can see the introduction to our product, watch an introductory video. These are the 3 8 NLG apps, which we will go over here today. Here is where you can download Arria for Tableau. And, oh, I'm sorry, here is where you get the showcases that we're going to take a look, showcase that we're going to look at today. And here is where you get Arria for Tableau. So all that right on this page, arria.com/bi-tableau. And actually, if you go to the Tableau website, in the extension gallery, you will also find it here as well. So that's how easily you can get started. And we're going to take a look here at how you can use it. Okay, so this Tableau dashboard has several visualizations, dynamic KPIs across the top, as you can see right here. Let's see. And of course, we have several tabs going across the top, and each tab represents a different sheet that tells a different story. What sets this dashboard apart from other dashboards is the Arria NLG narrative that's to the right. It provides additional insights for faster decision making, and it's in natural language. But this was not generated by a data analyst. It was generated by Arria for Tableau at machine speed. And this NLG narrative was created without using any code. So Tableau uses Connect 3.0, which provides a user-friendly interface for Arria apps. It provides new functionality over its previous version, which was 2.2, and it's easy to use. So we are excited to introduce both Connect 3.0 and Arria for Tableau as we continue to enhance our product line that Brian showed earlier. All you need to do to create an NLG narrative is walk through a configuration wizard, and then it provides value in minutes. So this really is disruptive technology. You're going to be able to choose from 8 analytical narratives that you can customize to describe your data. Each narrative has options to control the content. So we're going to focus on how you can customize them, change the focus of it, and when to choose each type. So here you will see the 8 narratives. So we're going to take a look at them in some detail. There are variance narratives. We got time-based variance and target-based variance narrative. Trend analysis and ranking analysis, both are excellent to show the trends with your products or whatever your product line is. And then we have some charting narratives as well. And keep in mind that they do not just have to be used for charts. They are excellent drill down narratives that provide excellent analytics. So these are the 8 narrative types. We're going to take a look at how you can use them and how you can customize them. We're also going to look at it in two interfaces. So we are going to work in the web version, which would of course be the presentation layer that most people will use. We also have the desktop version. So here's the desktop version of the same showcase file. So we're going to look at them in 2 different interfaces. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at the Explore NLG Apps tab, which is up here. All right, let's see. This tab displays several charts with an out-of-the-box narrative to the right that provides deeper understanding. The descriptive statistics narrative, which is the first one we're looking at, identifies the product that contributed the most, and that product is right here, Caradian. It then summarizes actual sales for each product, identifying the main country that contributed the most. And then it drills it down into actual sales by country, identifying the most significant product. So the level of detail provided cannot be grasped simply by looking at the graphs to the left, and it would take a considerable amount of time to generate. So the goal is not just to see numbers in a dashboard, but instead it is to understand the main contributors to those numbers, identify trends, and provide valuable insights that promote faster decision making. So that leads me to my second strategy. Here we go. Where's my mouse again? There we go. Is to provide information flexibility. This also was generated by MIT. So consulting companies that study information consumption routinely found that more than half of all standard reports aren't being used by anyone anymore. Inflexible standard reporting means that executive attention is being misdirected. As organizations gravitate toward big data and data mining, it becomes essential to provide dynamic analytics rather than standardized reports. So let's switch back to here. Arria NLG provides flexibility in reporting analytics. Our second expert, a customer insights manager, may want to drill down into their data to identify opportunities with upcoming potential. Changing the design of analytics is as simple as clicking a button. If all Arria provided was static text, you probably would not be very impressed. But instead, we provide NLG narratives that change as the user interacts with the dashboard. And we're also going to show you how to change the narrative content yourself. So what do I mean by the narrative changing? Here we're looking at the narrative, and it's based on this sheet right here. And we identified that the most significant contributor was Karadian. So if I want to change the focus of this narrative, it's this simple. It's based on this sheet. I'm going to click on Karadian. Now I'm focused on Karadian. My KPIs across the top have updated, but so did my narrative. The narrative updated automatically. So there's not another narrative hiding behind this. This is dynamic analytics. By changing the data set, simply by clicking on Karadian to drill down into the data, then the narrative is now focused on a different data set, and the narrative updates. So how does this work? Let me switch over to the desktop. Here is the same narrative. To show how it works, I want to show how the data is used. So I'm in Tableau. Some of this you may be familiar with already if you've used it. Here is the data set that we're using. I'm going to click on View Data. And as you can see, 2,191 rows. So that is the data that's being used. When I click on Karadian, now my narrative updates. And then if I navigate over to here to see the actual data, that's broken down by country, full data, not 2,191 rows anymore, 298. So the narrative is actually based on these records rather than the original 2,191. So the narrative is dynamically updating based on a different data set. And if I click outside of it, now we go back to all products, and the narrative goes back to its full original length. So that's what I mean by dynamic analytics. So how does this work? Let's take a look at the design. So when I click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner, I then have the ability to go into NLG Apps. So this is looking under the hood. This is how it works. And as Brian mentioned, it's a wizard that you walk through. It's basically just 3 steps. You define your data set. So ours has already been defined. So I'm now actually in step 2. So here are my dimensions. There is my measure that's being summarized. If I go to the options tab, you can see how the data is ranked. So it's using use the selected attribute order, or we could let the software decide. Now my narrative actually went through all the products and all the countries. So if I wanted it to be a little bit more precise, I could just say, tell me only the important things, and then click generate. Now, since we identified that Karadian was the main contributor, now the narrative only focuses on Karadian and the country that contributed the most. So that's how easy it is to change the narrative. There's not another narrative hiding out there. It's just you change the design, the narrative is rewritten. So that's how flexible it actually is. Okay. All right, next. I'm going to take a look at the Analyze Sales Performance tab. I'm going to go back to the web interface. So this is most likely the presentation layer that the users would see in the web. So we're going to analyze sales performance of the products. So the first narrative is the one that we saw earlier, descriptive statistics. It's used to complement a tree map visualization that we see here. It analyzes profit by market and product, and you can see that departmental is the main contributing market, and then it drills down into that market to identify Karadian and Ointmo, here they are here, as the main contributors within that market. Next, you see 2 more narratives, the time-based variance and the target-based variance. So the time-based variance is complementing a bar chart visualization. The narrative contrasts Q3 and Q4. So here they are here. For actual sales in the year 2020, and this is another component I haven't mentioned yet, we have a filter up here that's focusing 2020 only. So again, we have 2,191 records, but we're only focusing on the 2020 data. It would be as easy as clicking a checkbox to update the narrative, which we'll do in a second. The third narrative uses a target-based variance narrative to analyze the variance between two distinct measures, actual sales, of course, and target sales. So a product manager will, of course, want to know whether sales targets are being reached, and it drills down into the details. This narrative in its design uses a feature called the top option, and it's using top 3 to determine how many products should be listed as contributors. So you see karate and routine and camoweed listed as those top 3. Now also note that market is identified within the narrative. We're basing it on, or we're complementing this chart up above, but the narrative provides additional details. It's including market, or you could choose product, to really drill down and provide that level of those insights that you need to really grasp what's going on in this chart. So that's what we mean by providing additional insights into your narrative. I can add as many dimensions as I want into here as I look at the data. Okay. Let's see. Oh, of course, and you have the ability, of course, to change the filter, as I mentioned earlier. So if I wanted to basically change the narratives that we see down below, I'm going to add 2021. All my KPIs update, but so do my narratives. So, of course, very, very dynamic in its nature. All right, strategy number 3. This is an interesting one. Strategy number 3 came from Harvard Business Review, and as I read this, it really got my attention. It basically said that we actually use less information to make decisions than we think. This is an interesting study that examines how we make decisions. Whether you're tracking the performance of a product portfolio, the grades of a student, or even hiring an employee, people's desire to reward or to punish came through much quicker than people actually expected. People view the mind as a rational arbiter, assuming that they and others will withhold judgment until they finish scanning all of the evidence. But the mind isn't just a passive information processor, it's also emotional. So in reality, when people begin to experience any evidence in real time, they will inevitably react to it as they go along. Often, we won't need to see additional information if we already love or hate the very first piece of information. So do you think this is true? Do you already have an opinion of this product already? We hope you're loving it, but it tends to be quite true. So understanding this concept, the Analyze Trends and Ranking tab, which I'm going to take a look at now, provides 2 more apps that provide additional insight. Here we go. To support what a decision maker may have already decided at first glance, to keep that first impression going. So here are 2 more of the apps that you can build using Arria apps. The first one is the Trend Analysis app. This app generates a narrative that analyzes the changes in a trend of a specific measure over time. So of course, this is actual sales. It highlights significant shifts and can drill down through multiple dimensions. So this narrative describes the actual sales by month within 2020, actually 20 and 2021. You can actually see that there are 2 selected here. So I'm going to go back to 2020 only. That was my filter that we used earlier. So it's describing the trend within 2020 and identifies 3 trends that should be analyzed based on a trend change percentage that's in the configuration. And if you decrease that percentage, you actually identify more trends. It always starts with the most recent trend. So as you can see, it's this one in here. And it's using product to provide details. Note that product is not within the graph, but you can add dimensions into the narrative to provide that new insight. So imagine this narrative explaining the trends with your products. It drills down into the details. So it doesn't just tell you the ups and downs, but what caused each shift in that trend. So this is an excellent one. This is one of our newer apps. Next to it is the ranking analysis app. This app generates an analysis of changes in the ranking of dimensions, in our case, country, over time as they relate to a measure, of course, actual sales. So as you look at this chart, it might be a little hard to decipher, well, which country is actually leading most of the time? That's what this app does. It's telling you that the United States is most frequently ranked at the top with respect to, and was so in 3 out of the 12 months. So it's analyzing this chart to tell you, well, who was in the lead and how much, how often was it in the lead. So if I then wanted to change this to 2021, so let's add that, turn off 2020. This is how easy it is to see the ranking of 2021 instead. So it's just a matter of changing that filter. There we go. Just changing that filter, and it tells a completely different story. Not another narrative that's hiding in the background. It's just dynamic analytics. And then if you find that this is not providing enough detail, we included country. You can add another dimension to this. You can include product. So as it describes this ranking, you can include products in there as well. Maybe product manager wants to understand that a little bit better. All right, let's move on to the next tab, describe charts. These 3 narratives, of course, are used to complement the charts that are above them. But keep in mind that these narratives are excellent on their own. So without these charts, they still provide excellent analytics. The bar chart app, which we're going to look at, provides the ability to drill down into data and really provide excellent analytics. So the first one, of course, is the pie chart. It performs an analysis of one measure, which is, of course, cost of goods sold by one dimension, which is market, displaying as percentages, and explains any significant outliers. Now, this is important to a sales manager examining the markets of products or their product portfolio. The bar chart narrative next to it analyzes measures, in our case, actual sales, of course, over combinations of dimensions, product at the bottom, and markets across the top, providing analytics on any variances. This drill down narrative provides detail for the main contributors, which are departmental, brand store, and online, and drills down into the products within those markets. So it's breaking down the markets and the most significant products within those markets. So considering the amount of time that might be necessary to do these kinds of analytics, it does it at machine speed. You walk through a wizard and it updates and shows you how it works. Now this narrative is excellent. It's telling us how actual sales changed over time. I'm sorry, not over time, as it relates to the markets. How about a product manager? If a product manager wanted to take a look at this, we might want to change the story a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the desktop version here. Here's my Describe Charts tab. And like we did earlier, we changed the configuration a little bit. I'm going to change this one. I'm going to click on the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, go into NLG Apps, and here are my dimensions, and there is my measure. If I'm a product manager, I would want the focus to be on product, not market. So I simply change the order. This changes the focus of the narrative to focus on product and then market. Click Options, that's the second tab, or the third step actually, or second step brings me to my third step. I click Generate, now it's focused on product. That's how easy it is. So keep in mind the scalability, 2,191 records. We're focusing only on 2020, but it creates this narrative at machine speed. So pretty impressive. Next to that is a line chart app. It analyzes measures, in our case profit, over combinations of dimensions, in our case month and market, over time. So this line chart narrative explains profit over the months in 2020 using a trend analysis and a time variance analysis that explains the main contributors as well as the offsets. So here's our offsets as well. It also shows correlations, which means markets moving in a similar pattern. So markets moving in a similar pattern are listed here. All right, and the narrative is added market, which of course was not in the chart. So it provides that insight that wasn't available in the chart itself. So keep in mind that the chart narratives can go beyond just charts. These narratives provide excellent drill down capability and can be used, and the time one over here on the right can be used anytime you have at least 2 dimensions and a measure. I'm sorry, these can be used anytime you have 2 dimensions and a measure, and of course this one you must have a time element in order to use it. Okay. Let's now take a look at how to build one of these from scratch. So I'm going to move over to Configure NLG Apps. We have a narrative over to the right. We're going to replace it and build one from scratch here. So how do we do it? Just going to click right here and choose Remove from Dashboard. Now I have a little space over to the right on my canvas here, so I can start building a narrative from scratch. So down in the bottom left, we have our objects. You have the option of tiled versus floating. When I click floating, that means that I have the power to, or the authority to place it exactly where I want to put it on my screen. So I'm going to double click on extension, go to my extensions, and I'm looking for this file. This is the file that you would get from our website that I showed you earlier. You would download this file, and if you're using the desktop version, store it locally on your computer. And now I've got the extension. Okay, so it's creating this visualization object. I'm going to drag it over to the right, place it where I want the narrative to display, and resize it to look good on my screen. Now all I need to do is authenticate. And now I'm ready to configure it. Now these 3 items are grayed out because the first step that you need to do is configure your data. So I'm going to give that a click. What we see up at the top is a listing of the sheets that are available within this dashboard. So this list is this list over here. So what I'm going to actually choose is a sheet that we created called Data for Narrative. This is basically a data source that contains all of the dimensions and all of the measures. So this one is actually actual sales by country and only contains 3 fields in it. So I'm choosing this one that actually contains all of my dimensions and all of my measures. You have the option to toggle all of them on. Now this would be great if I were configuring Arria answers, which we're going to take a look at next, where you can ask questions to your data. You would want all of the fields available. In my case, I want to be very precise, so I'm only going to choose specific fields. So I'm going to grab product, country, and market as my dimensions. And then as my measure, I'm going to choose actual sales and target sales. My goal here is I'm going to create a variance narrative, or target-based variance narrative that will contrast actual sales and target sales. So I'm going to click Save. My fields have now been designated. Now these 3 light up. So if I were configuring Arria answers, I'd click here. You can do a custom narrative if you had a studio account. But I'm going to choose NLG Apps, which allows you to create a narrative with no code. Here are the 8 narratives that we saw earlier. So they're all listed here. Since I have 2 measures, I have the ability to create a target-based variance narrative. Here are the fields that I selected. So my dimensions are listed. Here is country, and this gives you the opportunity to customize each field. You can create an alias rather than uppercased country, and that's looking at the back-end data. That's the back end. This is how you might want it to display. So it is case sensitive. If I want that word country to display, I can put it in lowercase, and I could designate that it's a location, and therefore it'll use the proper language when it refers to it. Then market and product, I'll keep the defaults. Here is actual sales, and you can, again, use an alias if you choose to. I'm going to designate that it's currency, and it's going to use US dollars when it displays. And this is important. Designate whether an increase in this value is perceived as good, bad, or neutral. Of course, it's sales, it's good. And then I'll do the same with target sales. So it's going to display as currency using US dollars. And then I'll designate how it displays within my data. Next, I go to step number 3. So a 3-step wizard, pretty quick. This is where I have the option to control how it displays the data. And it's in particular, entity selection gives me the option to choose how many of that first dimension that was listed. And I think I chose product. I think back. This is where I designate how many products should be listed when it provides that variance. So if I choose 3, and then I choose preview, when it creates my narrative, it's going to list, it was actually country, France, and then I see China, and then I see Mexico. So since actually country was the first dimension listed, that's what it focuses on. Can I change that order? Absolutely, you saw it when I modified the previous narrative. So that's how you can use the top option. You just choose from a drop-down list, 1 through 5. However, you also have the option to choose coverage. This is a little bit more calculated. It's a little bit more precise. Keep in mind that you might have, hundreds of products, but let's say, for example, you can then choose a percentage. What percentage of my products, or in my case, country, how many countries should be listed? If I choose a high number, I'm going to get a lot of products. I'm sorry, countries again. So there's Mexico. Now I'm including Germany. Or if I choose a smaller coverage percentage, let's go down to, I think we need a little bit of a higher number here. And you can tell it does the preview pretty quickly. Yep, I need an even higher number. You have to know your data. You always know that. Okay, so now I'm down to 2. So it's a little more calculated. It's a little more AI driven. You're determining what percentage coverage, what percentage of contributors contributed up to that variance that we're talking about. Then when I click generate, it creates my narrative. So that's how easy it is. It's basically just 3 steps. You select your data, then you choose your narrative type, and then you customize it in the last step. So how can you control the narrative? Let's take a look at previous or next slide. I'm cheating. These are your options to control the narrative. You can prioritize the field listing, which we saw earlier, putting one field above another. Choose your narrative type. There are 8 types. You can choose the verbosity of the report, summary, important things, or tell me everything. Where available, you can change the coverage or top option that's available in your variance narratives, which we saw. Where available, change the attribute order or use the let us decide option. That's in the descriptive statistics narrative. You can use a unique unit of measure. When I chose US dollars and currency, it used that as the measure when it described it. But if I were working at a university, my units might be students. You can type students and it would use that word in the narrative. So little things you can do to control the words that are used in your narrative. And then finally, you can talk to your sales representative about obtaining a Studio account where you can learn how to build and build a custom narrative in Studio. Okay, so those are your options to control the narrative. So let's go back to, cheating a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Going back. Okay, so this is my, my 4th strategy. Data is always changing and decisions must be made in real time. So our data source there is called Toward Data Science. Go back to here. Okay. Arria for Tableau narratives analyze data with 100% accuracy and in real time. So when your data points to a live source, your reports do not need to be regenerated because the analytics update every time you interact with the data or refresh the narrative. Your data analysts can now stop generating new reports all the time and focus on other responsibilities. This will help our fourth expert, a finance manager of data analytics, to make faster decisions on the most current information. Arria Answers can help this fourth decision maker answer that one nagging question in real time that may not have been answered yet. So here we're looking at the Arria Answers tab, and now I can have a conversation with my data. Now it's important to note that I have 2 years selected, so that'll allow me to ask questions about both years. And like we saw earlier, this data source will include all dimensions and all measures, so I can really ask questions about all of my data. So let's get started. I'm going to ask which product, now that's a dimension, so it appears in the drop-down list for you. Just give it a click or press the tab key. Which product had the highest actual sales? Now there's actual sales in my measures list in Q1 of 2021. You don't have to type the question mark. It's assumed, but I'm going to add it for visual purposes. So here we see that the top product was camoweed and accounted for 46% of actual sales. So I'm going to dive a little deeper. What are actual sales month on month? This is a temporal variance query, which will analyze how much a measure has changed over a period of time. So here we see actual sales decreased by 44% this month compared to last month. So it, of course, had to know the current month, which is May in our case, and it's contrasting it with April. So now that I know what the highest contributor, camoweed, is, now I'm going to ask a question about that to dive deeper. What drove actual sales versus target sales for camoweed last month? Now, as I get my result, it's going to contrast two measures, actual sales versus target sales, and put it in the context of last month. So we can see that actual sales were higher than target sales by 13%. It lists 3 countries that provided that number and the offset to that variance. So you also want to note the language that's used when you're working with Arria Answers. It's always going to inflect nouns properly and use the right verbiage and words as it refers to any of your dimensions or measures. If a value is something like 0%, you can expect the response to use proper phrasing, like there were no values at this time, rather than returning a value like 0%. So this is a level of expectation you can have when you're working with Arria NLG. Finally, when you click on Explore Custom Narratives, this tab shows that if your needs exceed an out-of-the-box solution, you can talk to an Arria representative about obtaining a studio license where you will have complete control over the structure and every word of a custom narrative. So you do have that capability. Which brings me to my last strategy, and that is to validate your conclusions. This one came from Harvard Business Review. People are often hesitant to make a conclusion without validating their conclusion with a colleague, a perceived expert, or researching a peer-reviewed source. So when it comes down to an organization board member or even government policymakers, decision makers want the perspective of others before they make a big decision. So if someone else with the same education and experience level came to the same conclusion, he or she may feel more comfortable with their decision too. So the ability to generate dynamic analytics on live data quickly provides decision makers with our fifth expert, a virtual data analyst, at your fingertips. You can validate your conclusions by asking questions with Arria Answers too. So that's your fifth industry expert, a virtual analyst or virtual data analyst, available at arria.com. So keep in mind that dashboards can be built for many kinds of data to provide insights into many forms or types of businesses. These narratives and Arria Answers are really going to shine when it's analyzing your data. So keep in mind, picture your data being analyzed into a dashboard like this. Arria NLG for Tableau is also available on mobile devices. So you can download Tableau Mobile from the App Store on your mobile device and use it there as well. We took a look at where you can get it. So one of the last things I want to show, this is a web page that lists what are perceived as some very nicely built dashboards. Now, they are. I mean, they provide great KPIs. It's doing a little showcase of different companies and their types of dashboards. But now that you've seen what NLG can do for a dashboard, you probably notice what's missing. Does it provide that level of detail, that level of insight that helps you make decisions? We hope that you find that the narratives provide that level of insight, and it's dynamic. It's always looking at the most current information. You can also get documentation quite easily. Switch over to here. By clicking on the three dots in the top right-hand corner, just click on documentation, and that will take you to all the details about how to use Arria for Tableau and get started. So in conclusion, you now know the 5 ways industry experts use instant narratives to drive business value using augmented analytics in your Tableau dashboards. Arria NLG provides a no-code required out-of-the-box solution. The real question is, how much time would it take to do this kind of analysis? So deploying this kind of artificial intelligence to your Power BI dashboards will allow your data analysts to focus on more critical tasks. Always remember that Arria continues to add functionality and features. We just launched Arria for Tableau 3.0, and we're going to continue to add functionality and features as this disruptive technology continues to grow.